Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dot, a podcast by Loymark. My name is Alberto Garnier. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Loymark. And today we have Tim Lippa, Chief Product Officer at Assembly Global. So thank you for joining us, Tim. Where does this podcast find you?
Thank you all. Hi, I'm Tim. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Assembly. I've been here for about 13 years. I was on the client side for about 15 years before that. And I am located in sunny West Palm Beach, Florida, right near you, Alberto.
Nice. Yeah, that's not too far away from me. So just to start it off, can you tell us a little bit about Assembly Global and how, let's say, it differentiates itself from other global media agencies?
Yeah, well, Assembly Global has actually been around for almost 30 years now. And over the years, it's grown a lot in growth, and it's been combined as part of Stagwell from different performance-based media agencies. And if you think about it, all the best in class capabilities from each of those agencies came together in one global agency to form Assembly. So when we say we're Assembly, we're an assembly of talent, tech, and people, which is pretty neat. So that Assembly is a great moniker and way to describe how everything came together. And I would say that our biggest differentiator is the proposition of building the best experiences for our clients to deliver brand performance growth. So it is about, and when we think about experiences, Alberto, experiences are what our clients have, they're what our associates have, it's what just general consumers or customers in the market have. And the more that we can bring brand and performance media together in one unified experience, connect that, and then deliver that, that drives growth for our clients. So I think like over the years of all those different combinations coming together to deliver growth through creating that one experience, that's what makes Assembly different. So we've kind of lived that for the last 10, 20 years, I would say.
No, interesting. Yeah, because there's some historic firms like Forward PMX that are part of, let's say, the old Assembly. And yeah, I definitely think it's clearly an innovative media agency. And part of that innovation, I guess, is product. And let's say you as Chief Product Officer, what is it that you're building? How is your day-to-day? Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I think we've been fortunate here that as part of all those agencies coming together to form Assembly, there's been some great product things to work with. So at the center of it, we've got Stage, which is our operating system, and it's really what that is evolved into is an AI experience engine. So Stage is great at bringing data in at scale globally, making it configurable for our clients. And then we've got applications that we've built on Stage that deliver as an experience engine for our clients. And I would say one of the biggest challenges clients have is they've got a lot of data, but how does it come together? How do I use it? How do I build KPIs around that and make it actionable really quickly for my business to drive growth? Stage is very good at that. So as the Chief Product Officer, my role with that is to speak with our clients, speak with our internal associates, look at what we have versus what's available and coming up in the market, and then really build that product roadmap, make sure that Stage, where it's going now and where it's going to go in the future, is going to connect all that together and set the forefront of what clients need. And I think like the biggest thing right now, Alberto, which you know, is AI and agents, and everybody's talking about it. How do we use it within Stage? So it's how do we plan for the future, but also be practical of what we deliver to get there. So that's all my remit.
Which let's say related to that, I mean, there is a lot of chat that data is a new oil and everybody's following metrics. How would you say, let's say, or what's the differential between, let's say, having real business metrics versus vanity metrics? How do you differentiate between them? And let's say, how can smart companies go for the right ones and not the wrong ones, I guess?
It's funny, and Alberto, you and I have worked on a lot of clients together where we've seen this, right? So you and I know it both firsthand. But I think it's really difficult to make true business KPIs that you can report on, because it's very difficult to connect brand to pure performance-based media to then what's my sales goal, and when I make a decision here, how do these 10 different things affect it, right? And this has been an issue, I think, for clients for the last 30 plus years. And I think it's gotten more difficult as we get into modern measurement and how we look at data, and it's hard for data to come together quickly at scale, right? So I think the big thing is that you do have to connect it all. You've got to pick the things that matter, develop a KPI that you know where the brand performance is going to come together to affect the business outcome. And with that, you set up baselines. Nothing's going to be perfect, but if you set up a baseline around that, so you know where you are, you make good incrementality changes and investments to that, so that you know if you increase spend, you change your brand media, your message, you make a performance and market-based change that you can measure it, and then you iterate on that. And I think like it's tough because clients will still go back to, I need reach and frequency, or I want a video view metric, or they have to have a time on site, or whatever that might be. And I think they still get lost in that. It's bringing it up a level and then staying consistent to that is really important. It's difficult. People get lost.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, we've been working a lot together with the quality of those impressions, let's say, because not all impressions are the same. And so, of course, that changes a lot, and trying to showcase, let's say, that how it differentiates pure impressions to quality impressions, it's difficult. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's like delivery is easy, right? And I think that's been a big thing, especially with larger media agencies, to say it plainly. They've got the ways that they want to deliver to a plan outcome and have the freedom with that. I think that's something we've prided ourselves on Assembly, is having a very audience first approach and saying, based on who I want to try to get my message in front of, how I want them to experience my brand, how do I set up KPIs around that matter, measuring more from an audience first standpoint, and then integrating impressions onto that, versus going the other way, right, where you're focused on delivery, which we know is probably not the best way to get growth for a business.
And now, you mentioned it at the beginning, but tell me more about agentic media buying. I know that Assembly has been advancing a lot on it. Give me, what does it mean? Not the press release version, like really what is agentic media buying?
I love it, Alberto. I can't believe it's been 8 minutes before we got to agentic, right? I figured we had an over under how many times we were going to say agentic in the meeting. I'll see if I can get us there. But yeah, I think agentic media buying it's a great idea and it's a great theory, and I'm on board with everything agents, right? I think we also have to have the realistic nature of where technology is right now and what's possible, and also appreciating that it's going to continue to evolve quickly over the next few years, right? Technology always evolves very quickly. So I think what works really well with agents right now is the in-platform work. You look at like a Google PMax, all the new things are available in Meta, and I think if you look at the major platforms, they're all looking at agents within, because they've got their own data sources, and their agents are going to work really well with their data sources. So if I'm a client, I have millions of dollars to spend on Google. Google has all of the Google data across the web, the Gmail, and it can combine that data with agents very quickly, to make better decisions. So I think those are great use cases for agents. We're some of the innovators at Assembly around that. We've been recognized by Google as some of the best at PMax. So for clients, knowing what's happening with the major platforms, how to work with those agents, how to make their data and their campaigns integrate better so that they're going to deliver performance, that's really important for agents. I think for next path for agents, people are rushing to build MCPs. MCPs are basically an interface for how agents can talk to each other, to say it simply. I think that's a forefront. And I'll say, I don't think anybody's figured that out yet. I think they're still figuring out the what's the right thing to do with my data to fuel my own agents. And then soon we'll be into agent to agent conversations. But I would say that'll be the next forefront. But I think that it still is important for companies to take a lot of time with their own data and making everything that's working performance work really well. And then we'll quickly get into agents from there, and how agents should talk to each other and where they should go. So I think that's where we are right now.
Oh, that's great, Tim. So where do you think the limits of agentic systems are today, and where do we still need a human in the loop?
This is the big question right now I keep getting. I think so. Look, the power and the processing needed to deal with large data sets, even for agents that have been trained and that are solid and out there, it can be extremely taxing. If you give an agent a very large data set and ask it questions, it can take quite a bit of time, right? So I think on the fly or real time processing of large data sets is challenging for agents right now. And that'll be a next innovation area because classifying the data, making it more scalably ready in the technology infrastructure is going to be important, because without that, you can't work on the media with the agents or do true agent to agent work, right? And it's funny that you said that, because a lot of companies, and I won't name some, but they've tried to build entire modular agentic workflows. I call them headless agentic workflows, where you've got several agents and you can connect them and they're going to do things. And I won't say names, but they've kind of sunset that as ideas because it's hard. It takes real tech development to make it work. But I think what's really interesting right now from agents, an agent to agent, or what should an agent do? I think things that are very data focused, that are going to be scaled, are important. Like I think of things like campaign trafficking, right? Where in the past, media agencies would have a bulk sheet and it would have millions of lines of things that they might have to hand code or execute or upload and look at. I think that's a great task for an agent, because an agent can very clearly read the data set and do that mapping and then get it set up and look. And it's going to be done pretty well, because agents are good at data. And I think, the practical example is Claude Code, where because coding is very regimented and it's very it's very defined from a data standpoint, Claude Code does it really well, right? So I think those are great use cases for at scale with agents. And where do we need humans in the loop? Well, Alberto, you deal with campaigns globally at scale, so you know better than I do, I would say. But I would be very concerned with telling an agent to just go live with the campaign without QCing it first, because budget mistakes could happen, capping mistakes on how to execute or launch. So I think those are all things that we would need to consider. To make sure that the agent doesn't make a mistake with that.
Yeah, agreed. No, interesting to hear your perspective. Something as well that has been a lot in the news, and I'm very curious on your take, is the relationship with Palantir. I think that it's a very well-known company, but I think very few people have worked really with Palantir. Can you tell us a little bit about what the relationship is and how you're using Palantir technology within Assembly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Stagwell had started to form the relationship with Palantir about a year ago. And I think what Palantir is very strong at, what they were part of their founding was being able to bring those disparate and unconnected data sources together very quickly and help clients prioritize that and make sense of their data. And I think that's been a great unified factor for Stagwell and Assembly, for using Palantir to connect all those different data sources at speed very quickly. Now we've got a platform called Stage that we talked about, and that already connects to 400 data sources and it works at scale very well. What Palantir is allowed to add to that, though, is to take those data sources and combine it with any Stagwell data source very, very quickly, where in the past that might take engineers months to do. We were able to do it in weeks with Palantir. And then I think what Palantir is very good at is rapid hookup to different LLMs to get analysis and insights at scale. So those are some of the things that we've built, and it started with an agentic audience system, an agentic audience targeting system, actually, so that we could bring that together and make audiences at scale quickly. And we can do that now. We can create an audience in a couple minutes that used to take a data scientist a couple weeks or a month. So, that the Palantir platform for that has been really, really tremendous at getting that growth.
Wow. No, interesting. And those audiences, how are they built? Let's say how much insight do you have of those audience? How do you understand the behaviors of those audience?
We're fortunate. Stagwell has got an ID graph that they've built that's based on all the different Stagwell data sets that are unique from an attitudinal and motivational standpoint. So Stagwell's got the Harris Poll, which has been around for over 60 years. We've worked with a company called Bera, which is also a great research company globally. And we've got millions of records of people telling us how they feel that are opted in of attitudinal and motivational data. We've taken that and started to build a global data structure. It's very far along in the US. It's got a full graph of 280 million people. And what we can do is use those attitudinal and motivational drivers to be the basis of audience creation. So the LLMs and the audience targeting system that we built with Palantir can basically look at that graph of 280 million people. When you ask it and you query it agentically, so I got agentically back in there, Alberto, but you can ask the agent what's most important for an audience. Like, let's say I'm a high-end shoe buyer audience, or I'm a sport shoe buyer audience, and I want to create that. The agent can look through on the graph and say, based on how consumers from Harris or Bera have identified themselves as, yeah, I like to buy sport shoes or Jordans, or I'm a sneakerhead. You can ask it that, and it will go identify those audiences for you. And I think what's very different about our solution is we can very quickly take client data in a very safe, secure, private environment. We can combine it with that Stagwell data, and then from that, use it to make them audiences. And I think it's differentiated. It can happen quickly on the fly, and because it's based on own data, first party data, and combined with that motivational data, the audiences are very high quality. It's really interesting, different way to do it.
I love it because it breaks the previous way of building audiences, which might have been, if you're a men sports sneaker buyer, it's 18 to, 35, male, living in an urban area. And so instead of doing that, it's breaking and it's going straight towards the right interest. So you're getting what we were discussing before, kind of the higher quality audience that is really looking for your clients' products or service.
So, yeah. You said it better than me. And I think too, the other great thing is it lets you do micro targeting or learning, and we all know that depending on the time of year, globally as well as the United States, buying habits are going to be very different even in localized markets, right? So you can get to those nuances. It's a back to school campaign. I want to get at sneakerheads in Florida versus New York. What does that look like? What does it mean? Or in Chicago, what's different about that? You could do that in a minute, and it's pretty cool. And like you said, it's not a standard interface where you're clicking through to try to build the segment. We're using AI to do it. Truly, to me, that's very different, and that's a great use of AI right now.
Now, transitioning on to, let's say, related to this, it's sort of you guys at Assembly and people from your team. I feel that there's a culture of learning and constant iteration. how are you able to kind of institutionalize that, or kind of promote a culture like that within your team? How is it that you do it?
Wow, I think that's a great question, Alberto. I think change management is one of the hardest things, right? And we at Assembly pride ourselves purposely on being a culture of builders, right? And I think building is something that's never done if you think of it that way, right? If you're there's always going to be something to go build. So we try to look for people who want that, who are excited about creativity, learning, and getting growth that way. For me, I think personally, change management and leadership is one of the most important things around that, right? And I think of myself as a kind of more of a coach and a mentor, versus a manager. And I hate the word boss. It's very 1980s, right? And I really do think good ideas come from everywhere. And I think when you outwardly build that culture of people expecting, look, we're all going to be builders together. Great ideas come from everywhere. Being truly open to input, feedback is a gift. Criticism and feedback are two different things, right? And I think feedback is good. It's good to know how people feel about things and give people the space to air their views and opinions and try to get to better outcomes together. So I think those are things we've done internally, is having open collaborative forums, um, being genuine, just giving people room to have an idea and giving people room to be wrong. I'm wrong often, and the more that you can fail quickly, but get to better outcomes and just keep building forward. I think that's an important thing. And I've been very fortunate. My team here, most of them have been here for about 8 years now. I think Assembly is very different in that, we do care about people and we put them first. So I think that's how you drive innovation with that. But those are some of the big ways we've taken a look at that.
Agreed, and I feel, let's say from the outside, but talking to you and your team, it feels that you and, let's say, the leadership is very accessible, and that definitely, what you were saying, it's not, when, let's say, I see you working with your team, it doesn't feel like they're with their boss, but with a colleague, and that really shows off. Agreed. So congrats for that and your team.
Thank you. Now we work with some wonderful people like yourself as well, and that makes it easy.
Yeah, thanks. Moving on to let's say a question as well that I'm curious on your answer is, if you were sitting down with a marketing leader right now and they're about to make a major investment in data or growth infrastructure, what would you advise them? Let's say, what would be kind of the advice that you give them?
Well, I'm amazed at how many clients in 2026 still say, I have mountains of data and I don't know what to do with it and I don't know how to connect it or how to use it. And I think the problem has gotten harder and worse over time, right? Because we just keep adding data sets, marketing data sets. Google gets more, internal CRMs. And you know how it is for clients. When you have an infrastructure and you build it over years, it's very hard to just swap that out and change, right? There's capital cost and sunk cost of investment in that. So what I would advise is how to build the right data connectivity layer around that, and how to more normalize ontology or schema within your organization so that you can take all that data and make a solid business language around it. Because if we want to have automation and have AI work in the future, just feeding it data is not going to work. And no matter how good AI gets, if the data is not classified the right way, or if it can't be understood, then you're going to have bad outputs from whatever input you give it. So I would invest in that data infrastructure and mapping strategies for how to make it accessible and usable. And then that's going to fuel the LLMs of the future, MCPs, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and we see it a lot. Let's say is that data is siloed, and so it's a sort of, one team is a loyalty team and they have a bunch of data with all of their loyalty, then CRM data, then the sales team, and then there's the marketing team. But if they're not connected, that's how the companies are let's say, missing on all of this insight that they've got, but they're not taking advantage of it.
Perfectly said. Yeah, and I think that's exactly. I think you've just nailed the biggest problem that's out there, and it's going to get worse. The more things we add, the more data we add to it, the more platforms, the more media channels, it's going to get harder to work with.
Yeah. Now, what's let's say another practice, let's say, that could be widespread today in marketing that companies have to stop doing? Something that, let's say, needs to stop.
Oh, what do we need to stop? I have to think about that for a second. I think, well, I think you said this at the beginning of the interview. I think people or our conversation rather is like, people get really stuck on a KPI, or they get stuck on something that they think works, and it's really hard because, like, in large corporations or even medium companies, finance has got a goalpost that you're trying to work toward, or a goal you're trying to hit, right? And you're trying to make sense of it, and you get very stuck on very very nuanced KPIs. Like you said before, delivery of impressions, or you can get very stuck on even sales, right? Because getting stuck on sales or an ROI on sales, you could kill half of your funnel doing that. I think of this, Alberto. There's old cost accounting exercises where companies would go through and say, each year we have to kill the lowest performing ROI product line. Well, if the ROI is positive, why would you do that, right? Because you might not be coming up with new products that are better. It's okay as long as you're making money. Why would you get rid of it? So I feel like companies have to stop doing that. They have to stop focusing on one small nuance to what they're trying to do as a metric, and develop a real connected metric infrastructure that they use. And it doesn't need to be 50 things. It just needs to be the top 3 or 5 that connect it and make sense. And then you work into it, you test into it, you make changes into it, and you build up versus trying to drive a siloed thing. And I think people still are challenged by that. It's hard for them to work with that.
Yeah. No, agreed. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I think that this has been a great conversation. At Loymark, we are a precision marketing company, and I think today we've been discussing a lot about precision and kind of figuring out not only what works, but why it works. So really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for your insight. And for everybody listening, if this resonates with you, please get in touch with us and keep on following the podcast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alberto. And don't worry, in a couple of years, agents will fix all performance, right? No, but no, definitely focus on performance, and appreciate your time. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks.